Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of Caregiving Gen X Style. I'm Steve Mullen.
And I'm Jennifer Mullen.
As caregivers, we sometimes get so busy dealing with the day-to-day tasks that we forget about some simple preventative tasks that, if ignored, could cause big problems down the road. In this episode, we're going to give a rundown of things that you may have forgotten, but shouldn't. But first, Jennifer, how's your mom?
Well, speaking of things we've forgotten, Goggy's doing well, but we've forgotten a little bit about dental care for her. So we're definitely going to get into that in this episode. It really was sort of the genesis for this episode.
The impetus.
But, it was. She's doing well, but we have definitely had some dental adventures. And as, you know, we've talked about many times on the show, my brother and I, divide up duties. And for just the way things worked out, I'm the dental person. So I have visited the dentist in our local town a lot with Goggy lately. It started out us thinking it was sort of one thing. She woke up one morning and basically just pieces of her front teeth just were gone. So we were thinking she had chipped a tooth. That wasn't really exactly what was going on. It turns out that probably just because she hadn't been to the dentist in a while and she's getting older, some things were decaying. So anyway, yeah, she's doing well, and she has been such a trooper, which is no shocker, especially, to anyone who knows her and to those of you who have been listening to our caregiving journey for the last couple of years. She's a trooper. She has a super high pain tolerance. With her mobility issues, it is a little difficult to get her in and out of a dental chair, I will say, but we found a fantastic dentist who not only is he great and does he have a great sense of humor, but their office has a lot of Medicaid patients, and that has been helpful in a way that I wouldn't have even known that I needed it to be helpful when we started on this process, because they have folks who know exactly what they're doing and know how to get us through all the insurance stuff. So we'll get into all of those things as we go into the episode, so I really won't say much more at this moment. Instead, I will ask Steve, how's your mom?
Well, I have a story that I have not even told Jennifer because I just found out about it this afternoon.
I always like it when I get the surprise stories.
It's like a genuine reaction.
Yep, can't wait.
So my mother called just this afternoon as we're recording this, and she said, well, I've got a little story for you. I said, what? She said, well, it's a mess over here. I said, oh boy, what's going on? She said, my apartment's flooded.
Oh, no.
I said, what happened? She said, well, let me back up. For the last 2 evenings here where we live, we have had torrential downpours.
It's been a monsoon.
And, summer thunderstorms, it's one thing, but they tend to come and go. These things have just gone on for hours.
Yeah, could we just take a moment just to say we are very sorry, because there are places in the country where it is so much more severe than it's been here. And we are obviously...
These are just severe summer thunderstorms.
Course,
it's nothing, nothing life-threatening.
Right.
But, a lot of water we're dealing with here. And apparently they're figuring out what happened was some drainage out in the courtyard, which is where my mother's apartment looks out on, got clogged up. And the water started backing up, and it came in through the baseboards.
Oof.
Basically through the foundation of the building.
Yikes.
And, her carpet's all wet. They called a company, this nationwide company that you might know already, that comes in and does stuff like this. And they came in, they had to move her bed. They had to move the hutch that holds the 75 teapots. And my mother...
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. It's
right up against that wall. And she said, I was telling them, those are irreplaceable. If you break any of them, you are in very, very, very big trouble. She made sure they knew exactly what they were moving, and she said nothing bad happened.
Did they move it with all the teapots on it?
I think they just shuffled it. Not very far, I don't think, but they had to get it away from the wall. I have not seen this yet. I don't know if it's just, a few feet away from the wall, or if we're talking halfway across the room. I don't know yet. Oh my God,
the only person who would be more upset if something happened to those teapots than your mom would be me.
I don't think you would be more upset than her.
I'm second in line. I didn't know how to say that. I would be second in line.
Yes, you would.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
But according to my mom, nothing got damaged. None of her stuff got damaged, because she really has. We've talked about it. She has some nice antique furniture, and she can't see that anything got damaged, because that's all irreplaceable, obviously. But her life is a bit of a mess. They had to move her bed out from the wall, which means it's closer to the closet, which means she can't get to her closet right now. She has to ask a CNA to get to the closet for her.
Because she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it's a big mess.
Oof.
So that's what's going on.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
What a pain.
Yeah, it's
Adventures in assisted living.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I have a listener email to read.
Oh, right. I forgot. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I told you about it before.
You did. But see, I'm not feeling my best, so my brain's not functioning properly.
I don't think we've mentioned Jennifer has a summer cold.
Those are fun.
Oh, yeah. Those
super
are
fun.
Great
Which, by
fun.
the way, also means that, I can't really go see Gagi for a few days because I am not about trying to give her a cold right now.
No.
Yeah.
So this comes from a listener who wanted to go by a pseudonym. And in my little back and forth with her, I said, well, I'll come up with something. She said, you know what? Call me Xena Warrior Princess.
I love it.
So we are going to call her.
It's probably because it's a story about somebody who's doing a whole heck of a lot of things.
Yep. So we're going to go with Xena Warrior Princess. Xena
can we say
for short.
Xena? Okay. Yeah.
Here is her email, and I quote, I've been finding your show so helpful as I'm moving into the caregiving stage of my life. I'm wondering if you can cover caregiving for a spouse or partner along with caring for parents. My husband was recently diagnosed with a neurological disease, and while he is in the early stages of the illness, it's possible he'll need more intensive care in the years to come. Meanwhile, my mother has recently been diagnosed with a heart condition and may need heart surgery and lives several states away.
Oh, wow.
And we just learned my teenage child is on the autism spectrum.
Oh.
Needless to say, this is all very overwhelming and stressful. I am struggling to figure out this new normal. I am Gen X, and I find your insights and stories on this show so helpful. I'd like to hear from you how you and others were able to mentally and emotionally transition to this caregiving role.
Wow, Xena. First of all, let us just say how sorry we are to hear of all of those things that you have going on in your life. That is a lot. That is a lot of stress. And I'll take a moment, just a little squirrel moment. Where is George, the squirrel? He's back behind you, Steve.
We did not put squirrel where he belonged.
Do a little squirrel moment and say, first and foremost, I hope you are listening to me. I hope that you are trying to figure out how to carve out some time for some self-care in there, because you will not be able to help focus on all three of those people. So it's like sandwich generation, because it's a mom, it's your child, and then what's your spouse? What is that, like the lettuce in between the bread or something?
Interesting.
I don't know.
Well, you know what? It's kind of like a quarter pounder that has
fillings.
3 pieces of bread.
Oh, there you go.
Not a quarter pounder. I'm sorry, a Big Mac.
There you go.
Big Mac has 3 pieces of bread.
Not to make light of it, but
no,
it's the food reference. It makes sense. Wow. So how did we get ourselves in a mental headspace to deal with it? I'll speak for myself, and I will say, my brother and I, our journey with our mom, and it's interesting because he and I were just having a conversation about this not that long ago. It's been a really long journey. We have been doing some level of caregiving for our mom for, Steve, we've been married almost 30 years. Right. So longer than 30 years. And
we've been together 32 years.
Right. So
married for almost 30.
So a really long time. So with her, what I will say is it's really been an incremental journey, right? And so there wasn't any one thing that just kind of hit us all at once. There are moments in time where something hits us all at once, like she suddenly has to go in and have bowel surgery, right? So then it's all of a sudden you're in the hospital and, dealing with all that, and then rehab, et cetera, et cetera. And, those are like pops on the timeline of super, super stressful. But with her, I will say my brother and I think just have always, it's just kind of been a little bit a part of our makeup of our little family of 3, my mom and my brother and I, and we've always done it. So I don't know that it's been for us so much, having to put ourselves in a specific mental space to get ready for what's coming. Steve, I would say is a little bit different with your mom, right? Because it happened suddenly.
It wasn't. I kind of got eased into it. We've talked about all this, in past episodes, but I kind of got eased into it a little bit starting with the pandemic, where I was going
to say even your dad, actually, if we wanted to go back 20 plus years.
Yeah, but there was a huge gap in between those two of almost 20 years. But before the pandemic, I really didn't need to do a whole lot for her. She'd had some back surgeries where I went and stayed with her for a couple of days, but once she got past that, boom, she was independent, and she didn't need me to be around.
Right.
Once the pandemic started, she was starting to go downhill a little bit already with mobility, and I would go over once or twice a week, and that was mainly just to deliver groceries. I would help her put her trash can out because she had a sloped driveway, and, help her around the house with stuff. But it was mainly the groceries that started that.
Yeah.
But then, there was the incident, which you can go back and listen.
To me, that's where I put it.
That's
like
the
helping with
beginning.
I think so many people were doing that kind of thing. So many people were doing that kind of thing to, make sure that their, elderly loved ones or loved ones who maybe have compromised immune systems.
Just trying to keep her out of Target.
Right.
Really.
Oh my! Like literally trying to keep her
one day.
out of the Target.
She escaped one day to Target.
I
yelled at
that.
her. I had to yell at her.
I remember
what
that.
What are you thinking?
I remember
didn't
that.
go that far in. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But sorry, back to at hand, getting yourself in this mental headspace for this. So then there was the incident with your mom.
So we did an episode about this some time back. It's, she had the incident where she was basically on the floor for the weekend. That was kind of the beginning of it. And then it got worse when her leg stopped working. And then, we got into that. So it kind of was
gradual,
easing
but not,
into
just
it.
Not, it wasn't 35 years gradual.
No.
It was
over the span of a year or two. But I mean, let's go back to the whole caregiving for your spouse thing.
Well, wait a minute. So let me pop this one sort of suggestion in. Zena, I don't know what you do for a living. I don't know what type of personality you are. This is coming from a type A personality. I can totally acknowledge that. What? But I'm thinking about, you now have 3 people in your life who need some level of attention. And I think a lot of what you are going to have to do is prioritize, right? Almost like project management and who needs what in the most immediate time frame, and how are you going to overlap who needs what and what that means, what that entails. I do think to a certain extent with 3 people that you're going to be focusing on, when you can maybe step back at least a tiny bit and take some of the emotion out of it and just put your practical hat on and, okay, I know these 50 things need to get done, but probably 43 of them don't need to be done right now at this moment. 7 of them do. And then, bite it off in manageable chunks. Don't try to allow yourself to think too far down this big, long road that could potentially be really overwhelming. And by the way, also not very good for your, mental and physical health. That's just how I would maybe try to approach it.
Well, I think that's valid. So let's go ahead and talk about the spousal caregiving, though, because it is different. We have
Very
no
different.
Experience with that.
Not yet.
To speak of. No. I mean, I know Jennifer probably doesn't want to take care of me because when I'm sick, I'm a bit of a baby because I just don't get sick.
I know, that's true.
I just don't get sick very often.
I think often that's a gender thing. Often men tend to be bigger babies when they get sick. And sorry to stereotype
frankly,
out there.
Though, I figure, I don't get sick very often. I'm just going to play it up whenever I can.
Oh, is that what your strategy
be
is?
A baby.
Okay, I'll remember that next time.
Well,
Got it.
Anyway, but I think, the thing about, I guess, you could say spousal caregiving, parental caregiving, it's a lot of the same mechanism. You have to take people to doctors. You may have to give them more care. The emotions are completely different. Completely different. Because with older folks, you just expect them, to eventually need more help. You don't expect that for your spouse, particularly at our age.
Right.
In your 50s to maybe upwards of 60 for a Gen Xer.
Yep.
So that's where this comes in, and that's where this becomes so much harder because, you think, not to become too much of a downer, but I mean, when you get married, you start to age, your kids get a little bit older, you start thinking, okay, well, we're going to get to do this because we're going to get to retire. And your future life that you're expecting, you have to adjust your expectations for that.
Agreed.
Because of, what's happening. So I think I would recommend personally some therapy. I think it would probably be...
Which falls under the umbrella of self-care.
Self-care, for sure.
Definitely.
I think talking to someone would probably be extremely beneficial in this particular instance, just to make sure you're handling those emotions properly. And look at me. I went straight to the emotion thing, and you went straight to the mechanism stuff.
That is true. That's a little odd for us.
It is, because I don't
But either way, I think
express my
both,
emotions.
not to pat ourselves on the back, because that's not what we're trying to do, but I do think that both are good pieces of advice because, yeah, I think, Zena, you've got two things facing you. You definitely have the emotions tied up with all of it. And by the way, subset of that is emotions of a child, your child, emotions with your spouse, emotions with your mom. Those are all very different things in and of themselves. And then, yes, just figuring out the actual logistics of what you have to do. So, boy, we are sorry to hear, Zena, that you've got all of that going on, but definitely know, and we hope this is how people feel, and it's certainly what we hear from feedback, like, just by listening to us, even though we're not there with you every day, like you are not alone. We're all, so many of us in some level of caregiving, and it's, it's challenging. It's challenging all around, and all we can do is, even through the airwaves in the podcast world, just, send support. And we do. I mean, I think about so many of the people that we've talked to or talked about on our show, sending them good thoughts. We continue to do that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to our episode. As we mentioned in the intro, or I mentioned in the intro, there are so many things to think about when you're taking care of an elderly loved one that sometimes you forget about preventative measures that can keep that loved one healthier in the long run. We're going to run down some of those measures and talk about why they're so important. So the
very first one is dental care.
Dental care, as Jennifer mentioned in her How's Your Mom, it's
we
important
just
with Goggy.
Yes. So, she had some fairly significant dental work like a few years ago. And then, I don't know, frankly, it just fell off our radar, and pandemic happened. And this, has it been that long? Probably has been pre-pandemic before she had been to a dentist, right? So like I said, she woke up one morning and she thought a tooth had chipped off, or two pieces of two teeth had chipped off. So, that's how by the way, after we spent some time just even trying to track down a dentist that would take her insurance, which in the end, thankfully, ended up being a little bit easier than I anticipated. I got a big, long list from her supplemental, dental insurance, and found one close to us. And actually, it's worked out really, really well. But, we go take her, sit her in the chair and say, okay, like, we just need to get these couple of teeth in the front fixed up. They chipped.
That's funny.
Oh, no. They literally had decayed, which I know it sounds terrible. And I know my brother and I both felt terribly neglectful, like, oh my God, we just let our mom's teeth rot away. But, they had essentially decayed. And then, not shockingly, a few cavities in there too. And a few other teeth further back in the mouth that we actually had, you couldn't see necessarily, that we're going to also require basically crowns or caps or whatever. So I think we're at least 3 appointments in now, with a couple more on the schedule. And actually the last one, which was just a couple of weeks ago, we went in. This was to be the first crown appointment. So the first 2 ended up being just filling cavities. Then we go in for the first temporary crown appointment. And while he's in there doing that work, discovers that she needs a root canal on another tooth. So, like I said, she was a trooper. She was in that chair for 3 solid hours.
Oh my goodness. I've done those appointments. Jennifer knows. Our listeners may not know, but I have dental care. I have lots of tooth problems.
Yeah.
And I've done those 2 and 3 hour appointments, and they are brutal.
And you're a lot healthier.
It's exactly.
A lot younger and a lot
it's like
healthier.
You're running a marathon with your mouth open.
It's a lot, but I will say,
awful.
A couple times the dentist stopped and said, do you want to keep going or do you want to stop and we can come back to this? And she was, of course, her mouth was open, just, waving her hand, just keep going. So she was a trooper. It was a little bit difficult to get her out of the dentist chair afterwards.
Been there for a while.
So yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience. It's something that, of course, can't go back and fix it now, but I think we're kicking ourselves. Like, of course, hopefully, for the most part, most of us out there are going to the dentist twice a year. That doesn't change just because someone's older, right?
Yeah.
There are some other things that change because they're older. They don't maybe don't go out as much. I don't know. We just did not think about it.
Well, and I have to make an admission. We've talked about this. You and I have talked about this. Nana has not been to the dentist for a long time.
You need to get her there.
And I need to get off my butt and get her there. Although, see, with her getting into the dentist chair is even harder than with Goggy. We had to deal with a dentist about a year ago. My mother had a crown fall out right in the front.
Yep.
And I found a dentist. I took her to a dentist that I knew. We've known her for a while through the travel soccer world. But, she went and took care of it. This dentist is interesting, though, because before she was a dentist, she was a physical therapist.
Yeah. Speaking of unicorns, that's a unicorn right there.
So
Thank
she said,
goodness for her.
She said, we're going to get you into that chair.
Yeah.
One way or another, we're going to get you into that chair. So, but the thing is, I haven't taken her back, and I know I need to. And it's just one of those, oh, God, it's going to be a pain in the butt, but we need to do it.
Yeah.
So,
no, it definitely needs to be done, and definitely cannot emphasize this enough. If you're in my situation, Goggy's situation, which is that, she's on Medicaid, that's a thing. You gotta find a dentist that accepts that, or any, medical professional that accepts it. And the really interesting thing was, the first appointment, they took a ton of pictures of her teeth, and they're saying to me in the office, they're like, yep, we'll submit this for, insurance. It's not gonna be any problem. Like, there's some stuff in here that's not good. And damn if we did not get a rejection letter from the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And the way the letter was worded, so this is a tip. The way the letter was worded, it basically was like, you have X number of days to appeal this, and here's what you can do, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, I'm thinking, all right, trying to get myself in a headspace of whatever it is I need to collect from the dentist office to then share back over with the insurance company, et cetera, et cetera. Felt very overwhelming, but just, put one foot in front of the other. So I take the letter into the dentist office the next time we go in for, I think, the next cavity filling. We hadn't even gotten to the crown appointment at that point. And again, the most fabulous, lovely women who help with insurance, they were like, they pulled up the pictures again, and they were like, oh my God, I cannot believe this got rejected. You hand that letter to us. We are going to take care of this. And I remember standing there slightly stunned for a moment, like, wait a minute, I don't have to do anything else.
You're taking this off my plate?
You are going to do this?
I love you.
And sure enough, they did it, and we got approval, which is now why we've been to the dentist 2 more times and still a few more visits to come. But don't be afraid. I guess the tip in all of this is don't be afraid to... You might get a letter that says you need to do this. Don't be afraid to take it right back into your medical provider's office. They deal with this all the time, every day. Hold it up in front of them and say, what am I supposed to do?
Business-wise, it behooves them to help you, because if you stop working with them right now and just throw your hands up, well, they don't get paid. It's for the extra work.
Well, they weren't going to get paid. Well...
for the additional work that goes down the road.
Well, we would have had to pay out of, I started to say out of mouth. We would have had to pay out of pocket for her to get the dental work done.
One might have said out your rear end.
Yeah, we were not going to let her go with decaying teeth. But anyway, yes. Okay, we digress.
But
Let's move to the...
As with all of the specialists mentioned in this episode, finding a dentist who accepts Medicaid or even Medicare can sometimes be difficult. But look for one, find one, and take your loved one to get those cleanings.
Yep.
What's next?
All right, the next one, Steve specifically is leaving this one to me. Oh. It's about foot care.
I believe we've mentioned I'm disgusted by feet.
Steve will not read this one because feet totally gross him out. But having your loved one see a podiatrist on a regular basis is actually it's a big deal. It's bigger than you might think it is. Yeah. So first of all, you want to make sure your loved one's toenails are clipped properly. Steve, are you clipping Nana's toenail?
Oh, God, no.
Many elderly people, they simply don't have the mobility to lean down and clip their own toenails. They don't have the mobility, the flexibility. And, it can also be tricky for you to be the one to cut them properly. And I can attest to that because I do give Goggy a foot bath every, several weeks. She has one of those, nice little
Do we have to talk about this?
Yes.
Okay.
Plug in electric foot baths so I get the skin all nice and soft and the nails all nice and soft. And then I do clip them. But, you know, like a lot of older people, like when the nails are pretty thick on her toes. And I'm always concerned that you do not want to create an open wound on someone's foot.
No.
You just don't want to do that. So when I clip her nails, I'm fairly conservative with that.
I would recommend, though, if you can find a podiatrist, just get them to do it.
Absolutely. That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say, like, don't, and by the way,
you absolutely have to.
And by the way, when we're talking about people like Gagi and Nana, we are not talking about people whose feet should be taken to your local nail salon.
No.
Lovely people.
Not recommended.
I love to get a pedicure at the local nail salon, but a podiatrist, an actual professional, is a really good choice because, again, don't want to create an open wound. Don't want something overclipped or nicked or anything.
My mother actually, the assisted living has a podiatrist that comes in every so often, but apparently that podiatrist is no longer available. I don't know why. It went out of business, retired, whatever it is. And they're looking for a new one, but someone had recommended, I guess, this mobile feet salon people who I guess have some training with older people. She can't get a hold of them now. Oh. And she asked me, she said, well, can you look up maybe and try to find somebody else? I said, oh, Mom, I don't really feel comfortable doing that because I don't know what I'm looking for. And I don't want to bring somebody into your apartment who doesn't know what the heck they're doing. I said, go to the front office and ask if they have any more recommendations for you.
Yeah.
Because it's...
Well, and especially, right, if you have an elderly loved one who has diabetes, for example.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could lose a foot. It doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much. It's critical
that you're seeing a foot doctor on a regular basis. You know, diabetes can lead to serious foot complications like nerve damage, impaired blood flow, increase the risk of ulcers, infections. I mean, it could ultimately lead to amputation.
The specificity there, by the way, I looked that up.
That was a lot of specification.
Yeah. Specificity.
But, you know, in general, a podiatrist can also catch a number of other issues that might, you know, lead to reduced mobility. So, you know, again, if they're in an assisted living, maybe there's a podiatrist that visits. My mom, Gagi, goes to a
geriatrician.
Yes, I guess.
That comes up later.
Right, that's really what you call them. And they have specialists that come in to their office. And so a podiatrist is on regular rotation, and so are we. So let's move on to the next one. I also have experience with this one too.
Skincare.
Yep.
So skincare, critical for the elderly.
Definitely.
A dermatologist can look for a variety of problems that can be treated very, very easily if they're caught early, but maybe not so much if they're not caught early. People our parents' age there was no sunblock to speak of.
My mom
People
just didn't go in the sun, thankfully, but yeah,
well,
she's
my
so
mother
pale.
Oh, my mother.
Your mom.
She was a sun worshiper when I was a kid.
Yeah.
She basically lived on the side of a pool.
She has much more olive skin that tans nicely.
It is true. Yes. Yeah. Well, and our daughter, I think, inherited that. Our daughter, who actually, when we were at the beach, by the way, a couple of weeks ago. I don't know that I've mentioned this. I think I did mention it on Facebook. But our daughter actually got a little sunburn. I think that might be her second of her entire life.
Yeah.
But anywho, they didn't use sunblock back in the day. And so it's something they really need to keep an eye on because, you know, skin cancer is an actual thing. Premalignant lesions, skin cancer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and even, you know, like, you know, moles changing color. Gagi definitely has, and it's an inherited thing. Sort of, we call them skin tags. I don't know what the actual dermatological name is for them. But, you know, just keeping an eye on them is, you know, really critical. You know, you want to catch stuff before it becomes a problem. Certainly when you're choosing a skin doctor, if you can find one that's qualified as a geriatric dermatologist, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. If you can't find that, at least what I will say, the experience we had, I somehow was on dermatology duty as well, actually. Well, my brother and I have both done dermatology duty. The most recent visit that my mom had, they actually have one table in the whole office, but whatever, it worked, that was specifically meant for older people who can't like climb up and sit on a really high, like stand up, you know, get up on that step
Explain
stool
this
and then
to me
climb
because
up.
This came up with my mother and a cardiologist. They should have those
tables, by the way. The tables
everywhere.
Like they had, that should just be a standard in every doctor's office moving forward.
Well, right. I mean, my mother, I took her to the cardiologist, and by the way, what's a large portion of their patient?
Yeah, older.
They're older people.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a table. They wanted her to do some kind of scan that they could do in the office. And they didn't have a table that went low enough for her to transfer to.
Well, and frankly, the place where my mom goes regularly, which is literally
a geriatrician.
Yes, those tables, because she's had to go in for a few. Again, they bring all the specialists in. Awesome. But like she's had to go in, I think, one of the times she was in for an EKG and she had to get up on the table. Meanwhile, like I'm terrified. I'm like, please don't let her fall on my watch. Right. But it's, I just don't understand why these types of tables are not in every doctor's office.
For anybody who might be a brand new listener, my mother's in a wheelchair. She can't stand. So, I mean, transferring, sliding over, using a slide board, whatever. But if it's like 2 feet above her wheelchair, she can't do it.
Right. So I think the tip here is think about trying to find a doctor, if possible, any of these specialists who maybe specialize in geriatric.
Possible. Small towns, you may only have one choice.
Right? Make sure they accept your insurance. Maybe ask about the types of tables that are in the office, if they have, if they're able to. And you don't have to be, by the way, in a wheelchair, even if, like, my mom's not in a wheelchair, but she still doesn't move around very well.
And she's not very tall.
She's getting shorter by the day.
She really is. Yeah. She really is.
All right. What's the next specialist you should think about?
Next up is to get your loved one's hearing checked. So this may be with a lot of folks, it's something you're already doing because, well, let's be real, when you get older, your hearing typically goes. But get it checked regularly because, even if your loved one is just a little hard of hearing, that may not require something like a hearing aid, you really ought to get it checked out because hearing loss can lead to a number of problems in the elderly beyond just being able to hear what you're telling them is for dinner or whatever. Hearing loss can lead to speech problems. There's a lot of studies that indicate there's a link between hearing loss and loss of cognitive function, which I find fascinating.
I find that fascinating,
I looked it up a little bit more, and really what it is that it's shutting you off from the outside world.
Right.
And you just don't have the engagement with the outside world. So if you don't have that engagement, you just start to go downhill.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting. So it's obviously more important. It's just a hassle because your mom likes the television too loud. And by the way, I have a story. It was going to be my How's Your Mom today until I heard that my
her apartment was
flooded. So my mother, she has hearing aids, and she doesn't hear very well at all without them. I recently took her for an appointment. The audiologist said, well, how are you doing with things? Just, can you hear conversations? Can you hear the television? Whatever. And she said, actually, the television, I don't hear very well. And so what's cool with these hearing aids now, it's so cool. Some of them are Bluetooth capable. And what the audiologist suggested, and we have now done, is you can get a little disc, you plug it into the back of the TV, into the audio jack, and it transmits the TV's audio to their hearing aids.
That's amazing.
So my mother, in the evening, she'll get some help getting into bed, and she's just in bed for the night. She watches TV for a few hours and then goes to sleep rather. But her TV was up on level 60.
Yeah.
60. That's like stadium sound.
That's
when you're at a rock show.
Really loud.
And apparently,
and she has neighbors.
And apparently the CNAs have commented.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, could you imagine walking into that room to help care for someone?
Anytime I've tried to help her fix something on the TV, I hear it. So anyway, so it's working. There have been no problems with it, which is surprising with a new technology that has been introduced. So very happy with that. Maybe look into that, and it'll cost you a little bit of money, but it might be worth it.
Gagi hasn't displayed too many issues related to hearing, but it is, she does listen to the TV really loudly, and it is kind of funny. So she lives in an apartment. She's got somebody above her. It's all wood floors. It's kind of like an older building.
It's like a 70s, 80s apartment building.
But like lovely, like actual real, like hardwood floors, which are nice.
It's a solid building.
And the gentleman upstairs, who's very nice, pretty much keeps to himself, occasionally asks, if she and her neighbor need anything. So he's perfectly lovely. But he is up really early in the morning, and he vacuums at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning sometimes. And, she'll talk about how she can hear that. Meanwhile, sometimes I walk into her apartment and the TV is at such an ear-splitting level. Like, I want to say to her, I haven't, but I want to say, like, have you thought about how much of your TV watching your neighbor can hear upstairs because it's crazy loud.
The good news, I think, at my mother's assisted living, I think they did insulate it pretty well.
I
at
would
least
hope so.
Apartment to apartment.
Right? Like my mom is not in a 55 and older community. It's just normal apartments.
Everybody there, pretty much everybody
They're
there is hard
probably
of
all
hearing.
at volume 60.
Yeah. So anyway,
absolutely.
all right, let's move on to the next one.
All right, the next one is eye doctor. Don't forget about the eye doctor. They might not have seen an eye doctor for years because their glasses seem to work just fine, but definitely a yearly exam can catch other things like early signs of cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration. These are things that can be treated if they're caught. So, right, try to think about all of these things that we have been talking about as preventative measures as much as they are, oh, something's wrong, must go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
These are the preventative things, which, again, we all know this. Right? We all know this as adults growing up and growing into adulthood that there are certain things you should do as preventative care. I think it's just that when you get to the point where, like, we, the Gen Xers, are caring for our elderly loved ones, it's the have-tos that really take up a lot of time. You get focused on that and you really forget about these things.
So let's, we may have a future episode on this, but men taking care of their elderly loved ones. Men are notoriously terrible
it's true.
about going to the doctor unless you are actually sick or injured.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's a really good point.
Frankly, I don't go to the doctor as much as I should. I don't get checkups like I should. We've talked about this. Jennifer's on me all the time about it. And so I don't think about just standard checkups when nothing's wrong. I think, okay, everything's great. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea to get checkups like this.
Definitely. And just note that we're using the term eye doctor a little bit generically, right? Like optometrists are not medical doctors. Ophthalmologists are, however, confusing. Actual doctors. Yeah. So really you should be taking your loved one to an optometrist for a yearly checkup if you can. That's a really good idea. If there's a problem beyond just the simple vision loss that can be corrected by glasses, you will likely be referred to an ophthalmologist. And again, if you have a loved one who is in a different financial situation, like Goggy, there are also services out there. I'm just going to mention this. It's a little squirrel moment.
Hello, George.
A little nod to you again today, George.
Oh, George fell over.
There are services out there. For example, my mom's glasses have been paid for in the past by the local Lions Club. There's like a program, amazing. Right? And they work with, it's not that we have gone and sought out from the Lions Club, but there are these programs with the eye doctor's office. Don't be shy about asking those questions because glasses and contacts can be really expensive.
Good tip, Jennifer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a good idea every now and then.
Every once in a blue moon.
Or I've learned a thing or two along the way.
The final specialist your loved one should see, we have mentioned this already, is a geriatrician.
Yep.
So, if you had kids when they were little, you took them to what?
A pediatrician.
A geriatrician is more or less the same thing except for old people, not young people. And so they specialize in working with people who are generally over the age of 60. They are trained to look for problems that specifically.
What it is, really?
Yes, I know we're getting close, aren't we?
I mean, we're not that close yet, but we're getting close.
I mean, for the record, I turned 55 later this year. I got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Ooh, got a ways to go. I can see it.
I'm still closer to 50, but
I can see it up the hill, but it's up the hill. So anyway, they're trained to look for problems that crop up with that age group. So things like managing multiple chronic health conditions that are common with older adults, like diabetes, heart conditions, arthritis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the good news is if you find a really good geriatrician that you're happy with, that doctor would likely replace their primary care physician. So there's not,
you're not adding.
Right. Don't feel like you're adding. I mean, certainly some of these specialists that we're talking about, those are added appointments if you're not already doing those, but also they're not added appointments that are with super hyper regularity, right? Like I think about, my mom, again, who goes to a place that specializes in geriatric care. They would happily see her every 2 weeks. And we've had conversations.
And they probably love her there.
Oh,
I'm sure they do.
Duh. How could you not?
Right.
But we've actually had, my brother and I have had conversations with her provider who we love there have been times where she has said, well, based on, your mom's actual medical condition and her age, like really the guidelines at this point are that, we should see her every other week. And
Seriously?
Oh, seriously.
That is insane.
And I think we did that for maybe like a month, like a couple of visits, like 2 weeks apart.
And she probably wanted nothing to do with it either.
Mom does not want anything to do with that. And my brother and I are happy to do all of the things that we do, but that was a little aggressive.
That's aggressive. That's extreme.
And so, then we had a conversation and said, like, really, do you really need to see her every 2 weeks? And there were some compromises in there. Sometimes we're better about some of these things than others. But by the way, keep this in mind. If someone wants to see your loved one every 2 weeks or every month, if that were ever to come up, negotiate. Because what we did was we negotiated. We said, hey, if we can share with you her blood sugar levels and her pulse ox levels and her weight, on a more regular basis, and you can just generally see that like nothing is going awry, could we do that? And blood pressure. So, there's negotiation tactics you can use in the world of medical care for your elderly loved ones, and I highly recommend that you do that.
Yeah, I mean, going regularly is one thing, but I think every other week is a little nuts.
Well, here's what I'll say, and again, for any of you listeners out there with loved ones who might have someone on Medicaid, the one thing I will say, there have been some times where Gagi has gotten super annoyed, and she's been like, oh my God, really? Like, we have to go back again? And I have said to her, do you know how grateful and thankful I am that you're one of those people, you are bottom of low income, which is to say like no income. And, you definitely do not have premier healthcare insurance, but we have found this place and this particular provider who is willing to, and does, not just is willing to, that's not even the right way to say it, but who does keep a regular and close eye on you. Like, you are so fortunate.
She's got a good
There is
person.
nothing that's getting out of control. Well, nothing that's getting out of control with her, with it, apparently the exception
that
of her teeth.
falls under her purview.
Of her teeth.
It does not fall under her purview.
That got a little out of control.
She's not looking at teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to wrap this up, to say it again, we understand taking your elderly loved one to see a doctor can be a chore. Whether they're mobile, whether they're in a wheelchair, whatever, it can be a chore. But if you can get them to see these specialists, it may prevent, needing a lot more care later. So, thanks to everyone for listening to this episode. If you want to get in touch with us with a question, much like Xena Warrior Princess did.
Xena, good luck.
Good luck to Xena, and I love your pseudonym. We have a few options to get in touch with us. You can email us at caregivinggenxstyle@gmail.com. You can send us a text or leave a voicemail, 804-723-1221. We are on Twitter and Blue Sky. The handle there on both is @GenXCaregiving. We hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Good night, everyone.